Ah, sì, né?
Damn.
Yeah. Boy. Swinging. That was so cool. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my dear friend, Jim Fox. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Cathy. Yeah, that was fun. Boy, those guys. Yeah. John Pisano. That was in a club in Westlake Village, but it was a lot like the way guitar night, would go with John.
Yeah. Did Jimmy Bruno live here for a while?
Yeah, he really did. He lived here I remember the 1970s, later 1970s. I remember him living here, and then he moved. He was good friends with Tommy Tedesco, and I would see them hanging out a lot together. There was remember that place out in Saugus, or like not Tahunga, more west of that, called Postamici. Charlie Chirin.
Yeah.
Charlie Chirin's that had a place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the hang for that.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. It was a long time ago.
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
Yeah, man. Mark Baldrich is here. He says hello. And Stan Ayeroff.
Hey, Stan.
He said,
Hey, Mark.
you are one of his favorite guitar players. Great melodic ideas, master of Freddie Green style, and a super guy. Couldn't agree with you more, Stan.
Oh, okay. I gotta go now.
It's true. It's really true. All of that.
How sweet. Really, I can't. You know what, though? Before I forget about Jimmy Bruno.
Yeah.
I remember one time he was visiting from, I think Philadelphia. I always want to say Philadelphia for Pittsburgh or Pittsburgh for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I know. I feel like he lives in Pittsburgh, but
okay. So stipulated. But he was out visiting, and this is a while ago, and Tommy Gamina, who owned Polytone, called and said, I don't have any amplifiers right now, and Jimmy is playing at Ruth Price's place, the jazz bakery, and he needs an amplifier. Could he borrow your polytone amplifier? I said, sure. And so he took it, for a few days to work there. And I got the amplifier back, and I had to destroy the amp because there weren't any notes left in it. Okay, that's my Jimmy Bruno story.
That's such a Jim Fox joke. Well, a few things came to mind. One thing that came to mind was it was so obvious how the audience was kind of part of the band, with their enthusiasm, in the moments it was like a reaction, right?
It was, but I gotta go back to John Pisano.
Yeah,
He has this innate ability to bring people together.
yeah,
I mean, that's why everybody wanted him to be their accompanist, like, Peggy Lee and Joe Pass
yeah,
and many, because he's a giver and he's
yeah.
an includer, and he doesn't mean to do this, but he plays like the people he's playing with.
Mm.
He doesn't play down to them or play up to them. He makes the conversation as equal and as giving and taking as possible. It's just his style, it's his way, and he does that with the audience. He just brings them right in and includes them.
That's beautiful. That's what really beautifully said.
It's true,
And
though.
it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, you've
so
been to
true.
guitar nights, so you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. Just his presence, his
yeah. And I played with him too, and he's brilliant, but you feel like it's adding to what you're doing. You never feel like it's above you or out of your area. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you, you almost never get everything he can do, because the reason I say that is I've seen some devastatingly monstrous talented players come to
On
guitar
guitar
night,
night. Yeah,
and then John just goes right up there.
yeah,
And then somebody else comes in who generally plays like just a bunch of blues,
yeah,
and now John's just conversing like that.
yeah.
And it's just such a natural thing for him to do.
You're right. And for those of you who don't know who are listening, we're talking about John Pisano, who was one of the three guitarists, and uh, he's he's got a huge history, and also he in Los Angeles he created Guitar Night, which was a weekly performance with a trio that he led and uh, an invited guitarist and all kinds of people. And was it 25 years, 20 years, 25 years?
Is close. It was around 25, about, give
Close
or
to
take.
25 years,
There
yeah.
was a history because back in the 1960s, it started at Dante's,
Hmm.
and the first guitar night had George Van Epps and Christopher Parkening. And the second guitar night, the next week at Dante's, had Bob Bain and I think Jack Marshall, talented writer and player. And Howard Roberts got in there a lot. And it went for years, and then it went away. And then it went back to Dante's, but it became Lenny Breau night. So I think it was a Monday. And what happened was when Lenny would go out of town, then other guitar players would play. So it was kind of a guitar night, but usually Lenny when he was in town. And I did a bunch of those, as did other people. I never made the first round. I was too young, but I went to some. And then it went away for so many years. And then John, somehow the idea came up to start it up again around the mid 1990s, somewhere in there, 95 maybe.
I guess I was there at Dante's working as a waitress because I remember Lenny Breau playing. Um, and gee, who knows? Maybe that was the night I met Ted Green. Because Ted didn't really go out a lot, and he fainted actually that night. That was how I met him. He fainted, and I had heard about him because I had gone to Berklee with you, right? And, at that time, really the most musicians were the guitar players, right? And so everybody was talking about Ted Green. And then I was at Dante's and he fainted, and I was standing over him when he came to, and I found out it was Ted Green. I was like, "Oh, you're Ted
Is
Green."
is that a lot like when Sean Penn fainted in Sweet and Low Down when he saw Django Reinhardt standing in the street? He just went down like those goats that faint, you know. Ted saw Lenny Bro and just went down. Your duo with Ted Green was it was so special. It was so great. And it was almost impossible to get Ted to come out and play in public, and you did. So I don't know what you did to get him to do it, except to say maybe you told him, "I'll take all the heat. I'll be singing the song, so you just play," or something, whatever it was.
No,
But it was great.
I didn't even have to convince him. I didn't realize that he wasn't playing a lot. It was just a very natural, like we got together to play, and he was, him, he was so kind and nice, and I guess he liked me, and then we and then that first gig at the sound room, I put up like three little postcards or something, and when I got there, there was no standing room. That was my first gig in LA. I was like, "Oh my God."
Wow.
But he was so it was a joy to work with him, and yeah, we had just such a nice it was just that was a really beautiful
He was
music.
very, it was complicated because he was very timid about playing in public.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I mean, from my perspective, I wouldn't characterize it as performance anxiety, but that's the way it came off. It was he would start playing with the knobs on the amplifier, and he
Oh,
just and then like 30 minutes later he'd still be doing it.
yeah.
Like anything to not play. Just and and he said to me, we got together a few times, and I said, great, we'll play. And he said, well, I'll play for you and you play for me, but I generally don't, you know, play together. I said, okay, okay. But we did a bit anyway. But I think he was timid about putting his toe in the water,
Yeah.
you know.
Also, he told me he felt like people expected a lot from him, um, and he didn't feel like he could deliver that.
They did expect a lot, and he did deliver.
He did. He did deliver. It was just who he was. Yeah. Yeah. He was really,
And
really.
he's a wealth of knowledge because
Yeah.
he played like he could play very much like in the style of George Van Epps,
Yeah.
but he loved a lot of rock and roll and blues players and just electric stuff and fun
Yeah.
things. He just liked almost anything guitarist or guitarish or music-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I was thinking of while we were listening to that video, um, was just that uh, that style of jazz, especially with guitar, is so great when it's played well, and when it's not played well, it's not that great. But when it's played well, it's so engaging and satisfying. And I mean, I guess it's good players, but that style is so good, and um, we have to talk about that style, because especially how it's related to now, if it is related to now, you know.
Well, first of all, it's to me that's kind of a deep question because the guitar can be a chordal, or it can also be single line. It can do a bunch of stuff. And so part of that is the conversation, regardless of style, whether it's something that's, really modern or current or post bop or fusion or swing or Brazilian or anything. It's the conversation where you're listening to the other player. And if the other player is playing some thick chordal stuff, then you pick another avenue to be your part of the conversation. And if you're all playing too much at the same time, it becomes more chaotic and more difficult to listen to and to enjoy, and it's less of a conversation. So I think that's part of it, where sometimes John would be playing some time, Jimmy would be doing some fills, I'd play some bass lines.
Yeah.
Because that's like something nobody else is doing, and it's fun and it's contributory and it's part of that watch movement where it's all kind of working together. There are times you can do the same stuff. I mean, playing rhythm at the same time with John Pisano is pretty fun. Pretty fun. Getting slightly different registers maybe. But again, I think it's the conversation part that I think is the engaging thing. And then that makes the style part kind of limitless. Because I mean, you could hear Larry Coryell and John Abercrombie, or you could go back 70 years, 80 years and hear Carl Kress and Dick McDonough, or you could hear Joe Pass and Herb Ellis, or you could hear Larry Coons and Anthony Wilson, and you'd hear a wide range of years and styles and approaches, but it's that conversation, I think, that is so engaging.
Yeah. Uh, who are a few of your very favorite um, guitarists that you just cherish?
Well, somebody that I really enjoy hearing all the time, and I really respect. I don't I don't get around much, but I think Larry Coons is just a tremendous talent, and we got him here in Los Angeles, and he's not only has so much facility and so much musicality, but he also is sensitive, really sensitive to whatever he's doing, and he applies that so well. And so does his dad, Dave. Dave Coons, my God.
I know, man.
He's a treasure, man.
They're from the same universe, man. They are great. Yeah, both of them. Yeah. I did a gig with both of them once, and I was like, wow, they are from the same universe. It's like, it's trippy, man. Yeah, so good, both of them. Such taste, good taste.
All the other ones I hate. Don't like.
What about the older guitar players who are dead? Like who were a few of your favorites to listen to?
Well, when I was young, I was addicted to Barney Kessel.
Huh.
Really, really addicted to Barney Kessel, and how he helped develop the guitar in the trio format.
Yeah.
There were these records in particular called the Pole Winners records, but they had these popularity poles
Oh,
in downbeat metronome,
downbeat. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, crescendo, maybe.
Yeah.
No,
Uh-huh.
anyway, and so Ray Brown, Shelly Manne, and Barney Kessel kept winning the polls on their instruments. So they did these records. There are
Yeah.
about 4 of them or so, called the Pole Winners, the Pole Winners Ride Again, the Pole
Yeah.
Winners 3. And Barney just had this great ability. But then I also, all the people that you would expect, Wes Montgomery, Charlie Christian,
Yeah.
Joe Pass later on. I didn't get Joe Pass until the Berklee years for me in the mid 70s. He was going earlier, but when Pablo Records signed him on,
Yeah.
that's when a lot of us discovered him, because
Yeah.
now it was more widely distributed.
Right.
And then they would pair Joe with people like Oscar Peterson, or just
Yeah.
all these people. He'd put these groups together, and Joe and Oscar sometimes were like oil and vinegar. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
But they were amazing, and Joe could keep up with Oscar, which is that's an award right there,
Yeah.
um, I've always loved Herb Ellis, just for the pure grease of it all,
Yeah.
It's so much fun. And and then there the East Coast guys I kind of discovered when I went to Berklee,
Uh-huh.
because I got like Howard Roberts and Barney and Van Epps, and they're kind of West Coast. So then I got like Jimmy Rainey and Chuck Wayne and um, other guys like that I can't think of right now. And Johnny Smith, huge. Johnny Smith was just a Segovia with a pick.
Yeah, Johnny Smith, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Really cool. Um,
I made it into hey, John Pisano's calling.
hey, look at that. You should answer and just say hi. And say
Um,
hi for me.
I don't want to, it could get complicated. It's probably
Okay.
Gene. And and then there's the technology. Hey, sign on. um, but I made it into Johnny Smith's autobiography.
Wow.
But I didn't deserve to be there. But the story is what's so funny. When after Berklee, and
Yeah.
after you and I hooked up as friends again in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
I had a little road stint, and it took me to Denver. Johnny Smith lived in Colorado Springs,
Yeah.
and I had a day off, and I said, I've transcribed this guy, and I have as many records as I could possibly get of this guy, and he is,
Yeah.
so special, so great. So I said, I gotta meet him. So I call up directory assistants 411. This is 81.
Yeah.
And I said, in Colorado Springs, I'm trying to find John Smith. Well, sir, I seem to have like 38 of them. Well, how about Johnny Smith music? Because I knew he had a store.
Yeah.
No, I don't see it. I don't see it. And so I rented a car. I rented the cheapest car I could get. It was a Chevette. It was about this big. And I'm driving along like the crest of the Rockies from Denver to Colorado Springs. And I just started driving the town. It just drove. And after about a few minutes, I saw Johnny Smith music.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went in, and there he was.
Ah!
And he had a shop apron, a denim shop apron on.
Oh my
And
God.
and I said to myself, this was like Sweet and Lowdown, where Sean Penn sees Django Reinhardt and faints. It really is. I said, like, get a grip. So I walk over to where there's music books, and I start just looking through the music books. Don't hyperventilate. And a lady walks in, and she's got what we used to call a chipboard guitar case. They were black or gray or alligator skin, but it was really cardboard with a,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, you could buy them for like, $20
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
And he says, ma'am, may I help you? And she said, yes, I have my son's guitar here. It's broken. And Johnny Smith, the great Johnny Smith, says, would you like me to look at it? Yes, please. So he puts it on the glass counter and opens up the case, and he takes out the guitar and he looks at it and he says, you're right, ma'am. The guitar is broken. It has a broken string. Would you like me to fix it for you? I'm pouring sweat, Cathy. I can't believe that the greatest living pick style guitarist is going to change the string on a $39 Tijuana special. He changes the string and he says, that'll be 43 cents, and she leaves. And then I talked to him and I convinced him to play something for me. And he handed me his guitar and convinced me to play something for him, which was pointless. But I told that story to the biographer and he put it in the book. So I have nothing to do with the man's life. Nothing at all. I mean, I wrote to him a couple of times as a fan, and he wrote back once. But um, uh, that's funny anyway.
It seems to me that guitar, let's see. And I don't know, maybe I love guitar. I've always been attracted to the sound of guitar and singing with guitar. But it seems to me that some of my favorite people have been guitarists. Barry Zweig, Joe Diorio. I mean, you know, um, you know, I mean, it's just all it seems like maybe because it seems like a more earthy instrument than really the piano, dare I say that, but it's strings, it's close to your body. It really, I don't, do you think so, or do you think I'm crazy for saying that?
I play guitar.
I know. You think so, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, we all instruments carry their challenges. We all have our
Yeah,
cross to bear. I think that in keeping with what you said, the voice is
yeah,
the closest thing to we have to the pure expression of music because it's in here.
yeah,
I mean, it's in here and it's in here, but it's
yeah.
here. The
This is
instrument
the
is
instrument.
here.
Yeah.
And then you have like maybe woodwinds and saxophones and stuff because you are blowing and you're getting vibrato and articulation and stuff like that, and brass maybe that well, and then once you've gone through those, then the next connection might be touching the strings,
I think you're selling yourself short. I
and
think
then
it's the strings first.
I don't, because when you breathe, you're breathing vibrato and life into the horn. But I mean, but the guitar is, because it's an accompanying instrument, it has another kind of personal level,
Yeah.
because you sing to it, you play to it.
Yeah.
Um, Piano can do so many things. It's so broad, and but their challenge is that they have to get from their mind and their heart and their fingers to a button, which is connected to a hammer, which hits the string. So I feel like when you hear a pianist who can make that instrument sound human, you know, you've like Bill Evans or Vladimir Horowitz, you know, uh, and I mean, we got some special people in town, like Mike Lang and Tom Ranier, and
Oh yeah.
that they can really bring the human condition into that instrument, even though they're not connected to the string directly.
I'm with
That's a
you. I
hard
mean,
one.
a good player is a good player. Josh Nelson. I mean,
Yeah.
there are these special, and I've talked about this before on the show. Like, as a singer, there's many accompanists that I've enjoyed playing with over the years. However, Tom Garvin and Lou Matthews were really outstanding. And why? It wasn't their technical stuff, it was something else. They were so, um, I don't know, supportive. It was like you felt like you were in this lush bed, being totally supported on every angle. Um, so yeah, I mean, but there's still, I agree. There's so many. I mean, that's why we like the players we like, right? Because they move us. Same with singers, they move us. God, who did I hear? Oh yeah, yesterday, or was it yesterday? Saturday. Saturday, I heard a singer who has not been singing for a few years because she's had some serious physical issues. And I heard her, and you know, three notes. I just, it went straight into my heart and knocked me over. Kathleen Grace. She's just, what is it? How do you describe? You can describe it different ways, but it's the sound of her voice. But it's not just the sound of her voice, right? It's who she is and how her expression is, which is really everybody. I mean, we're talking about it all. In fact, I just came off of a piano lesson, right? So it's a class, and you hear all these different people, showing what they're doing. And Jeremy Siskind is the piano teacher, who's a brilliant player, and Luther Hughes is on the class, and his wife is, and actually Paul Kreibich is in the class too. So, but it's really interesting because from a student point of view, especially, you get to hear how people are expressing themselves, and most of I would say all of these people are not accomplished at all. It's really like, beginning rhythmic connection, harmonic connection too, but the rhythm connection really is what's beginning, and needs development. But still, you hear their perspective, and I love that. I love it when students do sing at workshops for me. I just love it because I I hear them. I hear them, and it's just it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
And you can hear them get it, start to
Yeah.
grow,
Yeah.
connect. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's exciting.
I have a few comments. So I want to just first of all, Stan Aroff said he visited Johnny Smith too, and he was wearing a store smock.
I love Stan. He's talented guitarist.
Very talented person. Yeah.
Yo, Stan.
Yeah. Taylor Hatch. I don't know if you know him. He's a guitarist, and
We're Facebook people.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's at UNT, and he always has great questions. So we're going to get to that. And Joyce Glasgow says hi. Michael Welch said he had no idea Johnny Smith composed "Walk Don't Run." That's cool. David Becker says hi.
Hi, David.
Yeah. So okay, now Taylor he says, can you talk about how you practice counterpoint on each string? How do you go about working on technical fluency when you're trying to become more connected with your voice leading? I'm telling you, Taylor always comes up with these great, intense questions, man. Well, who even says that he practices counterpoint?
Look straight ahead and strive for tone.
Well, let's talk about voice leading. Okay, I'm sure you've worked on voice leading, and so uh, basically, I think he's asking, how do you combine working on technical fluency and voice leading?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is that I studied with William G. Levitt,
Oh,
who is the chairman of the guitar department at the Berklee College of Music.
yeah.
And I got really lucky to be able to study with him before I deserved to be able to be studying with him. But I talked my way in. I didn't even think I was going to get it. But his books, covers the nuts and bolts of voice leading chords across the fingerboard and up and down the fingerboard, 2-octave and 3-octave.
Yeah.
And he has studies that handle alternate picking triplets and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot, and there's counterpoint involved in his etudes. And I learned, I played all of the etudes and all of the studies. And then I also used his book called Classical Studies for Pick Style Guitar. So you had to play classical music with a pick.
Okay.
That was tremendous. And that's all foundational stuff, although his 3-volume set of books, the volume 3 is very advanced, and it does incorporate, aside from William Levitt's ideas, which are in the book because he wrote the book, but he also included source material from Segovia, Johnny Smith, and George Van Epps.
Huh.
And people consider George Van Epps's writing, Guitarist, to be fundamental to modern guitar, meaning 20th century pick style, modern or fingerstyle guitar. But then I would say that my own personal studies, my own contribution to myself is that I've really enjoyed writing solo guitar arrangements for myself.
Oh.
And so then I start really discovering stuff. It makes me discover stuff I didn't know is there.
Really?
Because, for instance, years ago, I did a CD, and I worked on it for a year before I recorded it. And so I would, just about every day, I would go through the repertoire that I had planned for the CD,
Yeah.
and I would play them, and I would say to myself, you didn't address this part of the song. You know, you kind of did something kind of nice here, and then you did something kind of nice there, but then there's this gap. And then I would say, well, this line looks like it goes here, and it looks like it goes there. And all of a sudden I'm doing something in a harmonic and contrapuntal way that I had not thought of before, because I was examining my own work under a microscope.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that just taking that kind of time to look at what I was doing helped me do my own thing better. But I don't think you can find a better source for practicing than what Levitt wrote. There's another book he wrote called Melodic Rhythm Studies. And it's like he wrote a small book of about 50 standards that are not standards, that are his things. And each one of them, it shows you a way to pick, read, and play both chords and melody. And a lot of guitar players that we have known know that book. I remember Ron Anthony said to me, we got to get together and play melodic rhythms. And I don't even know that he knew that I had played that entire book with Levitt in my lessons, but he knew about that. And there's another one. When you mentioned Barry Zweig and Joe DiOrio as being really special, Barry Zweig, so close to my heart. What a great man.
Yeah.
Great man, and an incredible musician. I mean, he did stuff on the instrument I didn't hear anybody else do. I mean, he did, especially on special nights, because he, like all of us, is human, and we have some nights that are special. Boy, when you would catch him, when you'd catch him in the moment, when you catch him, not, in whatever state, whatever brainwave state that is, alpha, or I don't know. Boy, he was so remarkable, so melodic and inventive.
Yeah.
And Ron Anthony was just a treasure and such a lovely man. I miss the two of them so much.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, Taylor, that's about the best I can come up with.
Yeah, well, he has a few more comments and we'll get to that. But actually, I wanted to kind of lead into what you were telling me before we came on about what you're working on right now, because it kind of sounds like it might be out of that thought process.
Yeah. Well, I was in this a guitar ensemble that was led by Bill Levitt, and he wrote special arrangements just for that ensemble because many of them were standards, so they weren't teaching material, which were used for other ensembles. This was just sort of his little pet project, and when I studied with him, a spot opened up, and he said, "Would you like to be on the ensemble?" And then about a few months in, he said, I'm losing to graduating. I'm losing the rhythm guitar player. He said, "Now this isn't. I'm not demoting you or suggesting it, but if you would like to play the rhythm chair," he said, "most of the guys don't really want to." And I say guys because, especially at that time, there were so few women.
Yeah, very few. Yeah,
Getting better. It's getting better. But I met Emily Remler at Berklee, and we hung out.
yeah.
But this was different, and so I don't mean to say guys, but because
It was.
but it was, yeah. And but I think from here on out, when I say guys, I mean everybody.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. But he said, "But when we play in our lessons, you seem like you like to play rhythm and you like to accompany. How would you feel about that?" And I said, "Sounds good to me." Because I felt like also the heat was off. We were reading so much stuff.
Right.
And so then when I moved back home to California, I was getting together with a few guitar players to read through stuff occasionally. And one of them was Jimmy Weibel, and some other guys, and it was at this place, Dick Charles Music in Glendale. Anyway, I contacted Bill Levitt, and I said, "Would you be willing to share your arrangements, because I'm getting to play with Jimmy Weibel?" So he sent me some arrangements, and I was also doing road work at the time, so I wasn't getting together that often. And so we played a couple of these arrangements, and then let's cut to just prior to pandemic. I discovered that I actually had 8 of them, 8 arrangements.
Oh.
I thought I had 2
or something, yeah.
So then when the pandemic started, and we've been in lockdown and are still a lot in lockdown, I thought, I'm going to record one of these, all the parts.
Cool.
And then I have these. I have a special guitar, actually a few, special by this remarkable builder who's in Australia, and they have a great acoustic sound. They have floating pickups on them, but that doesn't affect their acoustic sound. And so I thought, usually, guitar ensembles are electric guitars, like the Tony Rizzi Wire Choir, which I played in a few times, and other stuff like that. A lot of colleges have them, and anyway, but they don't do them acoustically. And I thought, well, I love the acoustic sound of this guitar, so I recorded all the parts acoustically on these microphones, and so it's a different sound. It's just it's 7 acoustic guitars.
Wow.
No,
we hear?
6.
Could we hear it?
Yeah, I mean, I could email or text you one, and then you could share it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to hear it. I'm sure other people would love to hear
Okay,
it.
so while we're talking, I'll
Yeah.
I'll see if I can pull that.
While you're looking, I will tell you other comments and stuff. So
Okay.
Stan actually asked a related question. He said he wanted to know if you ever played in the Tony Rizzi Charlie Christian 5 guitar group. Was that it, or?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I was scared. I was just. They did it at the union, the old musicians union on Vine, and everybody would stand at the door and listen. It was on Friday mornings, and it scared me. It scared me to know.
But Jesus.
Yeah, it really did. And Tony was very nice to me. I went and I felt like I had just laid an egg, and he called me and he said, Jim, you really read really well. I mean, that was like about maybe the best first reading that, and that didn't stop me from being very anxious. And so I didn't do it very often.
Yeah. Taylor also said, I'm not sure if you know my current teacher, Noel Johnson, but something I've worked on is applying what's in Petrushka scales and chords. Basically, it means playing two triads but a minor third up. It's an interesting way of challenging yourself on the neck.
Hmm. Hmm. Sounds great.
Uh,
I'll have
yeah.
to try something like that.
Um,
I'm looking for
and
this.
that's okay.
Not this.
And Taylor also said, how about practicing chord melody? There's a lot you can include, but there's also ways to leave stuff out. In what way to suit balance the two to where your playing doesn't become too much? Yeah, that's a really good question, and a good question for Jim because he really engages that, I think.
Never leave anything out. Don't leave any holes. Play at all times.
And then
Sorry.
he said, I had this conversation with Dave Mooney, another teacher of mine, and we talked about how playing patterns becomes too robotic or too scale-like. In what ways do you work on melodic without focusing your brain on patterns? And he always gets into the education, which is cool. Compared to when you were at Berklee, what do you think jazz education or teaching music in general is lacking? That's a deep question too, man. And
Yeah,
you know
let me
what?
send this to you first.
Yeah, send it to me, and I actually might go find you again on YouTube. Maybe.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff I don't like.
I know, but I'm looking. I'll tell you what I'm finding. I am finding. I mean, probably anything with John Pisano, right?
Oh yeah,
But you've played with so many people, man. Um, there's one at the Eastman booth.
that doesn't mean they like me.
What about you at the you? What about you at the Eastman booth with John?
I don't. You know, I don't. I don't watch these things.
Okay, I'm gonna just. I'll play a little bit of it.
I emailed you. Uh,
Okay,
let me know if you see what I
okay,
emailed
I
you.
will. But I am gonna play a little of this too.
Oh God, not we're doing Stompin' at the Savoy again.
Yeah, but it's just the two of you. Well, okay, that sound isn't that good. So let me find my email. Where is my email? And new viewer window. Jim Fox. Cool. All right. So,
Rough, it's a rough mix too. So,
okay, cool.
but it's all
So,
acoustic guitars, and I played electric bass on it too.
oh, cool. All right,
I
hold
might
on.
get my friends to put acoustic bass on it if I ever get to see my friends again.
Okay, so let's see. What will I look at while I'm listening? I'll look at, I think I'll look at your website while I'm listening. Because I like to look at something because my sound gets better
My
when I
website is way
share.
out of date. I haven't done anything to it. In fact,
Oh,
my wife Meg is gonna help me fix it because
oh, good.
I'm inept.
Let's see. Hold on there. Hold on there, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm sharing the screen and I'm gonna play Jim and
Is this what I sent you?
yeah. Now where did I put it? Oh yeah. Jim Fox. Jim Fox. Here we go. Okay. And here we go.
that fun? I mean, really,
Yeah,
his arrangements were really fun. So it's given me something to do.
totally
But
fun.
also, I I reverse engineered um, a Count Basie chart. I say reverse engineered because you got the horn keys, right? B
Yeah.
flat, C flat. I I got a Basie arrangement that was um, Neil Hefti,
Yeah.
and I rewrote them back into concert.
Oh,
So that's a 17-piece big band, and so
wow.
I recorded that.
Wow.
It's a Splanky Basie chart, Splanky.
So where can people hear that, or can people hear that? Or was that just for yourself?
Yeah, the Levitt things and Splanky, and right now I'm working on a Billy Byers Basie one. Uh, uh, so I'm halfway
Cool.
through that, but I have to write them out because they're fast, and I can't transpose them on the fly. So many horn players are so good at transposing, right? Like they'll take
Yeah.
the tenor part, put it on alto, they'll take the
Yeah.
concert part and put it on this, and
Yeah.
my God, I don't know how to do
It's hard. Jim, I actually have to go to the ladies' room. Can I play Alone Together while I'm gone?
it. Sure,
Okay.
fair enough.
Here we go.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Thanks.
Um, let's see. Pat Kelly's here,
Hey, Pat.
and you know who I played with the other night for the first time in years? Dan Sawyer.
Wow.
He
But
sounded great, and of course, he's a great sax player too.
I know he's he's s- so talented, and he's a great writer too. But he'll shock you with what he can play. You know,
So
I mean,
much fun.
he like he's another guy. Like I think it was someone like Sweets Edison said. He was hiding in the tall weeds. Just, he'll just sit back and play great, and then like, wow, then you hear him, and it's like, wow.
That's funny. Well, and Pat Kelly is one of my favorites too. I mean, he's so wow. He's talk about tasteful, really beautiful.
You know, we
Um,
we started to bring back guitar night just
yeah,
at the edge of the beginning of pandemic, and
yeah,
Pat did one of them, and we did it together with John, and I had so much fun playing with Pat and listening to him. He's
yeah.
uh,
He's beautiful.
by the way, I sent God, the sounds this thing makes.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I saw that you sent that. I'm gonna
It's
bring
kind of
that
big.
up.
It said 10 megabytes. If it, I don't know if it,
I think it's sent. I just wanted to tell you the other night. There's this gig. Did you ever play at Casey's Tavern in
oh,
Canoga
yeah,
Park?
I subbed for Dan.
Yeah. Well, the other night I actually had a gig there with them. So Henry Newmark on drums and Jack Darrow on bass, who talk about tasteful.
Yeah, he's great.
He plays the best notes and great time. And then Dave Moscow was the piano player. I had the greatest friggin' time. I swung and just, boy, it was fun. It was
Like
really fun.
it's like the ultimate neighborhood bar,
Ultimate.
like
You
a
know, the
gin
story.
hall.
Did you know that the owner of that, who's passed away, his son runs it. He told me, his son told me that his parents used to open their house to jazz musicians, including like putting them up if they were out of luck or sick, and that bar was kind of an extension, for them of that attitude and aspect. I didn't realize that. I knew it had been around a long time, but
Wow. Oh, I'm not going to say what I was going to say.
okay.
They used to have arguably the worst piano I've ever heard.
Oh yeah, the piano is kind of shitty. It really is. I remember hearing Marty Harris on
That makes up.
that. It was like, oh boy. Marty Harris was a great piano player, but you know, to be an artist, he didn't go there a lot in his, second half of his life, I think. And so on that piano, it was like, oh boy.
You introduced Donna Dewson to me,
Ah, yeah.
which was really nice because um, the the guitarist that she was working with was uh, uh, had an issue, I think, a temporary issue with his hand, and he wanted to relax it, take some time. And she had made some calls, and she was kind of desperate and like, "Can you come down tonight?" And I think you said, "Well, call Jim Fox." And I did it with her for a couple of years, I think,
Yeah.
up until pandemic. And she's terrific and a lot of fun to play with, and now a good friend. And so thanks for that, by the way.
Sure. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
sent you Spanky, you don't have to play it. It's not that long. I just wanted to say that in the improvised part, that if we do listen to it,
Yeah.
isn't necessary. But I copped. There's a there's a recording called well, Frank Sinatra live at the Sands. We all know the
Uh-huh.
recording.
Yeah.
There's a thing called Basie before Frank, and on those two records they use the same recording of Splanky.
Oh,
And Lockjaw Davis takes a tenor solo, and I played the first chorus and a half of his solo as my solo,
okay. I'm ready.
doing it, and then I gave up and started playing my own after that.
Okay.
But But
Jim
you come out with
Fox.
it and you forget it. I don't care.
Jim Fox.
But you looked at me when I said I did a Basie, re-engineered Basie, so I thought I'd.
Why not? Here we go. Cool, man.
That was reverse engineered horn parts, like 3 trombones, 5 saxes, and 4 trumpets, and a basic comping part and a rhythm part, the Freddie Green rhythm part, and all acoustics, no electric guitars.
Wow. Sounds really nice.
I'm not doing anything with this stuff. This is not.
This is just for fun.
Yeah, I don't see any potential except for sharing it with friends.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the most. That's it.
I like it. You know, I do want to talk. I mean, we spoke before about, how listing one's credits is kind of boring. But I will say, looking at your bio when I was transferring it over, uh, it was impressive, I have to say, because you've played with a lot of great people. Can we talk a little bit about just, your perspective on that and how it went and what was the longest gig you might have done, with a person?
Sure, sure. Um, the longest run uh, is Frank Sinatra Jr.
Oh,
That was in excess of 21 years,
wow.
most of which was a part-time job.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, year and a half to 2 years, it was a full-time job because we were celebrating the 100th anniversary of his father's birth. And so it became a centennial celebration, and we worked just about every weekend somewhere. And there were a lot of great places. I mean, one thing about traveling is, you get to play and see a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times you hibernate. You're so tired, you're just hibernating in the hotel room and just.
Yeah.
But I got to play in places like Royal Albert Hall and Carnegie Hall and Ravinia and Blue Notes everywhere, and you know that those are really special memories.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. And uh, for me, Frank became a very good friend, and we often did a duo.
Oh.
Um, there's one on YouTube actually,
Oh.
but it's too hard to dig down through a whole concert and find it. So uh, uh, I didn't think of it, but we and he was great on those. I mean, he had so much confidence in our ability to pull it off. He'd just say, "Oh, we'll just do that like in B flat, and you take a chorus." I'd say, "I don't want a whole chorus. Take a half a chorus." No, we take a chorus, and then just get me in and get me out. We'll be fine. And then that was it.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I played for Michael Feinstein a lot
Oh,
in
really?
Southern California.
Oh.
He has guitar players. Um, I was just clearing something on there. Um, he has guitar players he uses in different areas. He has I can't. I apologize for not thinking of the man's name in Florida, but he's really an excellent player. And in New York, he used to use Bucky Pizzarelli a lot. And there's a guy in Chicago. I think his name is Pat. And but I did records with him and worked here in Los Angeles with him quite a bit since the early '90s. And we just worked about 3 weeks ago in Palm Desert. He's a lovely guy, and he knows so much about this music and knows how to do it and how to present it. He's a great entertainer and real supportive of the musicians that he uses. I mean, really kind. And so I like him a lot.
That's cool. Let's see. I was just gonna take a peek at your bio. Your bio says like tons of people: Barry Manilow, Bette Midler, Patrick Williams, Rosemary Clooney, Dean Martin, Jack Jones, Debby Boone, Rod Stewart, Kenny Rankin, Laurendo Almeida, Steve Lawrence, Gordon Lightfoot. I mean, uh, and also that you performed for 6 U.S. presidents and Highness, your Highness of
Uh,
Monaco and York and on TV shows. Thank
damn, who is that guy?
you. Thank you. I mean, that's a lot of great stuff, right?
Yeah, I've been lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky on this stuff. But you know what? I've always done a lot of different stuff. I mean, I've done casuals, I played in joints
Yeah.
and uh you know uh just you know just being able to play music for a living is a privilege. So I like some of the best moments are not the most famous people too, you know. It's
Yeah.
like when I did this thing 3 weeks ago, Bob Shepard was there. Playing with Bob we is just a thrill. But we were just doing the job on this one. But he's fantastic, and my friend Dan Higgins is a marvelous player, and we've had a lot of things together, both in this recording studio, but also just playing. And so Rosemary Clooney was pure luck, and that was a real privilege. The first one I did with her was just a quartet, and Peter Matz played the piano, and it was a casual.
Hmm.
I mean, it was a big banquet deal show
Yeah.
at, I think, maybe the Beverly Hilton, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, but she had a special featured spot, and I got to play with her there. And then after that, I did a number of things
With her.
with her, thanks to the contractor Joe Soldo that I worked for. And um, I would say one of the great memories I had with her was um, I got to play with her at the Hollywood Bowl, and one of the arrangements that we played was the original arrangement of for her of In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning,
Wow.
that was I think it was probably written by Nelson Riddle,
Huh.
and they were very, very close friends, and so it was personal, and I felt like I got to play a real personal arrangement with the great Rosemary Clooney. And just listening to her, even in her golden years, just the maturity and her ability to communicate a lyric and sing time with the band. That's the other thing about singers, and you do this very well, and that is handling the time. I mean, I've heard so many singers talk about, do they back phrase, do they, all this kind of stuff. But having a solid relationship with the time, no matter what you do, is really, really big stuff, I think.
I agree with you. And actually, Rosemary Clooney was one of the singers that I listened to growing up. Ella, Rosemary Clooney, Judy Garland, and then some groups like the High Lows. But I didn't hear Carmen and Sarah until I was in college, actually. But Rosemary, the tone of her voice and her phrasing, was just really, really, really beautiful. Um, and in fact, I told you I was talking to Luther Hughes before I got on, and we were talking about. Well, I was telling him that I have this idea that I use for singers, because a lot of singers, beginning singers, don't understand what the relationship to time is, um, and what they're capable of doing in relation to the time. So I say, okay, you're the guitar player, I'm the singer. We have an elastic band, each one of us, and one end we're holding ourselves, and then the other end is wrapped around this pencil, which is the time and the song going by, and that never changes. That's That's what it is. But I can do anything as long as the other end is attached to this. And so, and you know, that opens up their minds. It's like, oh, I get it, because it can be very obscure. Is that the right word? Abstract, obscure. You know, to be an a growing singer and to understand that you're within the song and you're and rhythm. I mean, I always tell them that there's two things that jazz singing is, or jazz really is. One is playing with the rhythm, and two is how the note you're singing sounds with the chord that's being played at that moment. And but the rhythm, I mean, that's half of it, you know. You you got to be connected to it somehow, you know, and you got to understand. Another image I use is swing dancing. You know, that's kind of a good image too, because the guy is holding it there for you, and you're like, you know, throwing your feet out and all kinds of shit, but you're holding on to his hand, right?
Wow, that's so interesting. Your rubber band and the pencil
Yeah,
tip. It's really I think that some of the last generation, like Rosemary Clooney or Frank Sinatra, a whole bunch that had to be band singers.
yeah,
They had to kind of soldier. They were in line just like the players in the band. So they learned to sing the time with the band for dancers.
yeah.
And I think that brings me to a thought in that where do people learn today? There aren't that many places to learn our skills.
You
There are,
mean live?
yeah.
Yeah,
To learn style and, you know, like we used to play so many, amateur shows, regional shows, casuals, um, you know, ice follies, circus, local Broadway shows. And you, as a guitarist, you have to learn to play so many styles to do that. And,
yeah.
and the same would go for every instrument and every singer. And I think it's really hard to find ways to learn that stuff today. Like we have a lot of young players who are so skilled in school. They've learned all the reading and theory and all that stuff. But it's really hard to find a place to learn the practical stuff, I think,
I
today.
do too.
Yeah, it's really,
Yeah, I do too. I think it's really difficult, singers especially, because they need the accompanist, you know. And there's no, there. I mean, there's jam sessions, you know, sit-in sessions where people, if they go constantly, they can get it a little bit. But it's one song, maybe two songs. You need to put in some time with somebody to play
and
around, you know.
you don't have to answer to the needs of the job. Like a jam session is for fun.
Yeah,
But if you have to really go, like one thing about so many of the great players that we've talked about, whether it's John Pisano or Barry, or and I don't want to exclude anybody, they all had to play jobs. I mean,
yeah,
Jim Hall, had to play jobs,
yeah,
had to play, um, uh, whether it was a TV show or it was a wedding or it was and then they bring that discipline to jazz. Like John Pisano didn't become a great rhythm player by playing guitar night. He became a great rhythm player by playing gigs,
yeah,
you know, where you have to come through in order to work.
yeah.
And so when we do these things that are personally rewarding and we get to express ourselves, we bring to the table all of our life experiences and all of our musical experiences. And those are the ones that are hard to find now.
Yeah. This I don't know if you'll roll your eyes when I ask this question or not, but of course, I remember that your dad was Cary Grant's lawyer. And so, of course, you remember something like that. It's like, wow. But relating to that, I've talked to a few people who grew up in LA, or yeah, I've talked to several people who had wild upbringings. I mean, regarding being surrounded by very, famous actors or musicians, and really interesting, like Gary Bavona. He was Gus Bavona's son, and Gus was the alto player in Hollywood. And Gary's house was always filled with musicians. As a matter of fact, his father's sister was a kind of a well-known big band singer, and her husband, whose name I can't remember, he wrote songs like "Thanks for the Memory,"
Mm.
you know, and so they were really super involved. And I just think it's interesting, like exactly what you just said. How you bring everything you are and everything that you've absorbed over your life into your expression, your artistic expression. I don't know if your dad was a lawyer for anybody else, but in that period of time, um, do you think you were affected outside of outside of your own playing? Like by your dad's association with Cary Grant, or whatever. Do you think you were affected by observing that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that it affected uh, my music that much,
Yeah.
but I learned a special respect for people with that amount of talent and recognition. Cary was a wonderful man. He was a great guy, and I knew him very well. And he knew a lot of musicians very well, including like Duke Ellington and
Ah,
Henry Mancini and a lot of people that would come to his house, not when I was there.
yeah.
And so sometimes we did talk about music a little bit. He he really dug the fact that I was pursuing a music career, though. He liked that. And I never wanted to get any help from my father as far as the business. And he was much older than me anyway. And he was, by the time I was ready to start working, he was retired. But I didn't want to go to a recording session as a kid and have people look at me and say, why is that kid here? You know,
Yeah.
like that should be Howard Roberts, or that should be Lee Ritenour, or that should be somebody else.
Yeah.
And I'd be sitting there struggling, trying to figure out what to do. And I didn't want to be embarrassed in that way.
Yeah.
And so it was a conscious choice of mine to, um,
Do the work first.
right. There was one thing that my father tried to help me with. And um, he had a lot of clients, and he had a client who was a producer, a writer, and a producer, and he represented people sort of in management or agent as well. He was just a very busy guy, and my father called him and just asked, "What should my son? What could he do? Do you think?" And he said, I got something, So we went up to his office, and this was right after Berklee. We went to his office. It was at Doheny and Sunset. And he said, I have a client who, you're going to kill me. You're going to kill me. I have a client who wants to make 10 jazz records.
Okay.
And you can produce them. I said, I can't produce records. I don't know anything about producing records. He said, no, there's nothing to it, Jim. There's nothing to it. He said, do you go to listen to people, like, do you go to Dante's? I go, yeah, I go all the time. He goes, well, all those guys want to make records, they want to make records. I said, okay, they want to make records, but I don't produce records. You just go in the studio and you let them play and you talk to them and you let them make the decisions, but you talk it over with them. He said, this is a tax write-off. The person doesn't need, they don't have to be successful. He goes, and make one for yourself. I go, make a record for myself. I don't know what to play on it. I just got out of school. I mean, and so I turned it down. I mean, I could be a big producer now, Cathy. That's why I said, kill me. I mean, I made 10 jobs. I could have gone in and had, I could have done like, can you think of the people that were at Dante's at that time? I mean, I could have done
easy.
I don't want to, but everybody that was there, we all knew they were household names. I could have said, want to make a record?
Yeah.
Got the money.
Shoulda, coulda.
Yeah, I didn't have the guts.
Yeah. 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 Well, whatever. I mean, it is true about producing, though. That is kind of true. I mean, you get better, you get better at it. You know what actually I developed from producing was this ability to say what I thought without qualifying what I was saying or going to say. That was such a valuable lesson. I don't think that sounds good there. You know what I mean? Like without anything on it.
That's important for a producer to be able to say.
Yeah.
And it's important for a player or an artist to be able to hear it in the right spirit.
Oh yeah, that's another challenge, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but as a player, it brings up a good point, and that is as when you're a recording player, which I've done sometimes, you have to be willing to not be in love with what you did. You have to be willing to say, I got a lot of choices. And so if what I played didn't work, you have to just drop that and move on to find something that does work and put your ego, under the chair and leave it there and get to the business of making a good recording.
But to me, the relationship between the person giving that information and you is it's also like a relationship with you and I. Like if we were making music together, especially for a project that we had opinions about and stuff. There's a lot to who's saying it and how they're saying it. And that's why for me, I've been extremely sensitive of having producers in the studio about my singing because I know, I just know how sensitive I could be and how remaining. I think that comes from being a teacher too. I remember one time in workshops, I wouldn't let students comment on other singers because they didn't understand how to do it a lot of times. They weren't a teacher with empathy and an understanding of how to communicate to the singer. And one student said something like, you remind me of, what was that image of the opera singer with the hat and the horns on her head, Brunhilde or something. And she said something like that. And that student told me how badly that affected her and how she was never coming back again. And that's why I didn't have just anybody give comments, but yeah, so it's, I mean, you have to, there has to be that trust there, right? That's the first thing. Brunhilde, thank you. But yeah, there has to be the trust, right?
You get all the messages. I don't get the messages.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But do you teach as well?
I have taught, but I'm not teaching now. I used to teach a lot, and I certainly have limitless respect for my teachers.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, great teaching and dedicated teachers. Um, I think that I've alienated some students because I I always start out as a pretty tough taskmaster. Then I lighten up when somebody steps up and does the work. They don't even have to be any good as long as they do the work, as long as they're dedicated, as long as they put in the time. And I think if I did teach again, I would do it differently than I did in the past.
Uh-huh.
Because in guitar education, there's a lot missing on fundamentals. There's a lot, it's so easy to play stuff on a guitar.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to go back and learn fundamentals and start from scratch when you're already rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And so I would insist that we have to handle the fundamentals. And I think if I did it again, I wouldn't teach any more fundamentals. I think I would go for higher stuff, more artistic stuff, because
When you say fundamentals, like
read, reading
reading. Okay. Yeah.
and related things,
Yeah. Yeah.
technique,
Technique, right.
yeah.
I think there's time being a teacher myself. I think there's time it's every day is different and every student, of course, but I had a student come over the weekend who I hadn't seen for a while. And it's not that he can't use warm ups and understanding, but I wanted to get him excited again. So we just went into singing songs. And we talked about various things. Uh, it's interesting too because I don't know if this happens in guitar. I would assume it does, but in vocalists, sometimes if I have a student and I get excited and I say, "Yeah, that was great," then they get freaked out because they didn't expect that and they don't know what they did. they, they want to do it again. Did you ever find that in guitar students?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I found it in myself too a long time ago. I shocked myself. I got something and then I wanted to get it again. Hey, I wanted to ask you when I knew you in Boston,
Yeah.
um, your father was very active in the music scene there.
Yeah, he was.
And I wanted to ask you about how that affected you and what that was like.
That was, I mean, really my whole youth was very substantially connected into music. I had twin sisters who were 4 years older than me. They both sang great, and one played piano. Then my dad was a sax player, and he was a band leader. And my mother had sung before she got married. So, I mean, my dad's records, became my records, right? Playing around the house and painting the living room with Ella Fitzgerald on in the background. And my room was right next to the living room where he taught lessons. So I would wake up to him screaming at the sax, the sax players. Um, so yeah, it was. I I can't even imagine what it would have been, what I would have been without that, solid beginning. And
Did you
I
do
think,
any did you do any jobs with him?
oh yeah, I started singing professionally with him when I was 12.
Ah,
Yeah, and my sisters too, but they were more shy. I was very outgoing. Surprise. I was really a ham. And also, I always tell this story, but it was true. Like when I was probably 4 or 5, and I would go to rehearsals with my dad, of course the musicians would flirt with me, I was a cute little kid and I was, there. And I always think that probably was part of what drove me to music, having these, hip, kind of hip guys. As a matter of fact, I remember when my dad died, and it was probably about, I don't know, 25 years ago, and, or maybe longer. Anyway, I went to the funeral, and I'm walking towards the grave, and there's a car filled with 6 older guys, and one says, "Hey, come over here." So I go over, and they're musicians, and they say, "You're Cathy, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Hey, your dad really was so proud of you." And I said, "Thanks, yeah." I know.
Wow.
And so it was like this camaraderie, you know, was always in there and a part of it. And I don't know about you, but when I went to Berklee, um, I mean, there were several things that I loved that stuck in my mind. One was uh, the involvement of playing and practicing. It was like this feeling that you were really inside it, right? And writing arrangements, handwriting, of course, at that time, which was delicious to me. It was felt so connected and good, and the community, because that was, I mean, of course, I had always had friends, and I played, in high school, and I had my sisters and my dad, but that was my first real broad community of jazz people, of players, and that that was a huge had a huge effect on me too. Did you find that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I traveled like, close to 3,000 miles to go there. So I was a long way from home, and I moved into the dorm, and it was all musicians roughly my age.
Yeah,
It's a community right there.
yeah,
And it was different kinds of people than I grew up with, which
yeah,
wasn't really that strange. But I was there with people from New York and people from all the states and all different kinds of races and colors and stuff, and we all were just kind of a melting pot. And then there was like the place where we would eat downstairs in the cafeteria when we could handle the food. And and it wasn't a good neighborhood at that time.
right.
I think it's better now, but Back Bay was pretty funky.
Yeah,
And so that was different than West LA. And then we were all doing the same thing, like you said. We were all studying harmony and ear training and ensembles and working together and writing arrangements. And we all were doing, it was for a common goal. And it was all involved deeply in music. We were inside the music and inside the program. And so, yeah, it was a real sense of community and and commitment. I agree. Yes, I concur.
yeah. We're so lucky that we had that.
Yeah, and I think it was a really good time for Berkeley.
Yeah,
I
I do
think.
too. I do too. It was coming out of, like, my father, in my father's day. He didn't go to Berkeley. He almost did, but I don't think he went. But in that day, it was very small, right? Just beginning. And then by the time you and I got there, it had expanded, but it was not huge. And it had like the 2 buildings for a while, remember? And
Yeah.
then I think as we left, it acquired that bigger building on Mass Ave. And now, of course, it's like, you know, thousands of students go there. And it's much more broad as far as the style of music. I think when you and I went, it was pretty much jazz, wasn't it?
It was. They were starting to develop popular music programs. I remember a teacher that was sort of spearheading that, Bob Rose.
Yeah, yeah, Bob Rose.
And so we were doing, some rock and some stuff like that. But the program that I was in was John Laporta's program,
John Laporte,
and
the king.
they stripped it down to nothing.
Yeah,
The one reason it was really good then is that that program had a lot of teeth. It was very it was full, and they started stripping it down because it wasn't generating enough. Well, to say it wasn't generating enough money isn't fair. I would say that they were losing, people were dropping out of the program and going, either leaving the school to go play. It was a performance program, so they wanted to perform, or they would drop out of it and get into the arranging program or a different degree program. And so they were finding that there was an attrition rate. And so they started stripping the program down, and it became almost all electives, where when I was there, it was very, very structured and really good. I think it was just kind of perfect.
yeah.
Feel really lucky.
Also, also at that time, and I've talked about this a lot on the show, but it's true. At that time, especially in Boston, the music thing that was happening, right? Uh, and on the airwaves, but in Boston, in the clubs. I mean, and again, we were doing all kinds of gigs. So there was the Motown, there was ECM was coming in at that time. Blood, Sweat, and Tears was happening. The Woodstock people, the just straight jazz. Then there was like Bob Moses and Weather Report. I mean, we that really put a lot of different and wonderful things
A
into
lot
us.
of input. I was playing with a bluegrass band.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh?
in Cambridge. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. I was dabbling a lot in the folk scene and the jazz scene, and I was in a show band. Remember show bands, like with two or three horns,
Yeah.
like you said, blood, sweat, and tears, but all that, you know, stuff that was on the charts, like Cool and the Gang
Yeah.
uh, and Tower Power and all that. It was all in there. And I was working in Jamaica Plain with that group, so it was like a real funky neighborhood. It was just
Yeah, that was really funky back
what an
then.
experience. We're
Yeah,
getting close
Tower
to the
Power.
end, you know.
I know.
I just looked at the clock on the wall.
I know, but we're not there yet.
No, we're not there yet. I'm
Unless you want to leave early.
no, I'm so glad that I've had a chance though to learn a little bit about your past that I didn't know. Your
Yeah.
twin sisters and your dad, and starting at 12, really, it helps me like understand, how you have gotten to where you are today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm like you were saying, constantly growing, but I mean, I'm definitely working on a lot of different music things right now, and also a lot of spiritual stuff. I've always been bent in that direction, and but there's hardly a day that goes by that I don't listen to Eckhart Tolle on YouTube because it's real. He just talks so real, and he stimulates things for me. Well, it's also like I've been reading, well, I finished actually Kenny Werner's second book
Hmm.
called Being the Instrument. He just came out with it last year. And as a matter of fact, you probably know this, but maybe you don't. Berkeley, 7 years ago, created a department called Effortless Mastery and put Kenny in charge of it.
Really? I
Isn't
didn't.
that amazing?
Yeah.
So his book, I mean, it's definitely an expansion of the first book, Effortless Mastery, but it's so, I mean, it's not just like this kind of a growth, but it's actually like this kind of a growth for him. He he really went through a lot of growth and realization. And the book talks about music and the application of your actions, but talks a lot about your point of view. And so that's what I'm getting into a lot more, like that Larry Kuntz thing, practice with joy, and because anything you practice is going to get stronger. So you don't want to practice with worry, you want to practice with how you want to be when you're performing, which is loose and fun, and even if it's a dark ballad, you're still having fun. So, and but I'm so enjoying concentrating on music and all parts of life that touch it and feed into it. I'm really enjoying that part a lot now. And it got more intense with the pandemic, of course. You probably went through some of that stuff too, you guys.
Yeah, the experience of lockdown, and it happened so fast.
Yeah,
Like one day,
so shocking.
we're doing life, and the next day we're in lockdown,
Yeah.
and getting groceries delivered. You know,
Yeah.
and it's it's just had a profound effect on everybody that I know. It's been very difficult, and it's hard to know how to morph out of it and what's
Yeah.
safe. What's safe? We hear about more variants and uh, and long COVID, like what happens to you, after you get it, and so we've been really, really concerned, and we're not so young anymore, so that puts us more at risk, and I think that it's going to take quite a long time for all people to heal, some slower than others, and we're in our house, we're pretty slow at wanting to be at risk again. I don't want to play any place indoors, really. I did that concert, but that was like masked and vaccinated and separated, but I'm real concerned about it. I don't want to go play someplace and be under stress. I want to enjoy it, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. But other people are getting in faster. You see people on TV going to baseball games and all kinds of things and hanging out together. And I just don't know how safe all this stuff is. And now kids don't have to be masked in schools. And I'm concerned about them because long COVID can affect them in so many ways potentially. So we have a lot to be concerned about. It's had taken a psychological toll on everybody. This isolation and fear and concern.
Jim Fox, thanks so much for hanging out.
Thank you for this invitation and this experience. I have so much respect and regard and love for you as an artist and a person, and I appreciate it. And I love what you do here.
Oh, thank you. And I love you too.
Thank you. Ah,
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jim Fox today, and you can go hear him when he's coming out again, and also you can hear him on YouTube and stuff. And you have two CDs, right?
I do have a couple of CDs.
Yeah,
Now CD Baby like changed everything. Well, I got to fix my website, but I don't,
I
I
know. CD Baby, man, they changed their whole thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bandcamp, I have to say, Bandcamp is kind of a cool place. You can, in these days, it's hard to demand a certain income from CDs, but on Bandcamp, you can uh, charge whatever you want. You can say you can download it and then pay me if you want. I mean, there's lots of, but Bandcamp, it's really good. The money comes much more directly to you than CD Baby
I'll have to
too.
look at that. But I would just say that for somebody like me,
Yeah.
my CDs that I did were uh, vanity projects, or they're just, they're just designed, to for me to um, document the way I'm feeling at that time. I've never had expectations of tremendous commercial success, so the money isn't that important because I don't expect it. It'd be great if it'd pay for itself. That would be just
That
a
would be great.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I've ever accomplished that, but it would be great.
Hard to tell after a lot of years of they get sold a bit, is give away a bunch. With
Yeah, it is
warm
hard to tell.
hands,
Well,
people.
now, if I wasn't with a label, I started being an Origin Records label person, but before I was just about to no longer print up 1,000 CDs. It's like because inside of me, it just kills me to spend, you know, $900 on 300 CDs and $1,100 on 1,000. Just killed me to do that, So that was one reason I always got 1,000. But anyway, those days, they're kind
It
of.
was it was some like old country guy like Tennessee Ernie Ford that said, "I got a million cellar. I got a million in my cellar."
Right. Oh, thanks, Anthony. That's a good idea. He said it would be great to hear you interview me.
I like there's a lot to learn. There is a lot to learn.
Tomorrow, I believe, I haven't heard otherwise. I believe I have Gerald Clayton on,
Wow.
which is really cool. And then
Talented guy.
Wednesday, I have, do you know Paul Carmen, the sax player?
I know Paul Carmen's name, but I don't think I know Paul Carmen.
Yeah, he's lived in Idlewild a long time and taught up there, but he's really good, and he leans towards avant-garde, and he has can't remember who's in his band, maybe Kendall or can't quite remember. He used to play at the Blue Whale, and anyway, so Wednesday is him, and then Thursday through Sunday, this is the normal behavior. I do 3 days a week live, and then Thursday through Sunday I have my archives and Oscar Hernandez, Carrie Frank, Dwight Tribble, and John and David Joyce are on this week. You can always find my who's coming on my website. I also just changed. I have to just share this. I changed my archive link. I was sending people to my Dropbox, but Dropbox got weird. They said I couldn't have a lot of people downloading from it,
Hmm.
and no matter how much I paid. Wasn't that I didn't have a lot of space on it personally, but I couldn't share the links. So I changed my archive. Um, but it's pretty cool. Jim, you are number 412.
Wow. Well, don't you archive on YouTube?
Well, yes, YouTube. I do on YouTube, and people can go there. But the thing is, okay, so um, because I want branding, I like to put my name first, Cathy Segal-Garcia, Noontime Hang. But that means the way it's shown under my channel, under videos, is you don't see who the guest is and you don't see the date. So
Oh,
you can look through and haphazardly pick and choose, which is fine. But I found that OneDrive, which is a Microsoft thing, I can post the list as a file. So like you could go and look at my list and go, oh, Anthony Wilson, I think I want to go see him and the date. Then go to the file itself. So that's what I'm kind of cleaning up and doing because, yeah, it's just. But YouTube, thank goodness, does have everything. It's another way of looking at it.
hmm, okay.
Yeah,
Microsoft OneDrive, I'll remember that too.
yeah, yeah. It's good
Technology.
technology, man. That's where I feel like I I have a limit. It's like I don't have much limits, but that technology kind of goes up to this point, and then I'm like, my brain's trying to open up, and I it's like,
Well, they keep changing stuff on us, you know?
yeah,
This one gets sold to that one, and then you can't get
yeah,
this, and you can't do that, and you can't delete this, and you can't find that. And
yeah.
all right, okay. But thank Kathy, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim. It was really fun. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
All right, I love you. Bye, everybody.